and significant structural bottlenecks. The basic facts of our unhappy inheritance are well documented. 15.4% rate of inflation, a 9.3% fiscal deficit, 32% rate of interest, a 3.4% rate of GDP growth, the lowest in 2 decades, all under an IMF-sponsored bailout program. We set to work quickly, and I'm glad to say that we've been able to stabilize the economy, exit satisfactorily the IMF program, and restore confidence in the economy. At the end of 2019, the economy was characterized by strong growth in response to implementation of government flagship programs, single-digit inflation, reduced fiscal deficits with 3 consecutive years of primary surpluses, relatively stable exchange rate, significant improvement in the current account with 3 consecutive years of trade surpluses, strong foreign exchange reserve buffers, and markedly reduced lending rates. The global pandemic of COVID-19 threatened to derail the progress chalked over the first 3 years of my administration. Its impact has led to the revision in GDP growth for 2020.
The president, before the 7th Parliament was dissolved, as expected by the provisions of the Constitution. And today, he is going to deliver his first State of the Nation address in his 2nd term as President of the Republic of Ghana before a new Parliament, this time the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic. Dr. Mensah, the President indicated that the COVID threatened to derail the economic gains, but the evidence is that COVID did indeed derail the economic gains that we had made over that his administration had made over the last 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah, if you ask me about the COVID impact on the economy, I think it was, quite reflective of what is happening now. The lockdown in itself, where it freezes movement, and a country that thrives on the movement of people to raise revenue, businesses to raise revenue, we should expect that. Now, if you take the president's delivery and then talks about resilient economy and all those, indicators that he mentioned, I would relate it to, the election results, how it came. You could see that the people were not happy. The numbers were being churned out over the years. Mm-hmm. We saw interest rates coming down to the extent of, inflation coming to the single digit. Yeah. Just before the election, that started lifting itself a bit into the double digit and all those. But then clearly you could see that, the people themselves who are supposed to fuel the economy in their pocket did not fuel the economy. And that is evidence that we saw in the election. Clearly, a gap of 1 million votes in the previous elections reduced to 500,
40,000 or so.
Was it 540,000 or so? It tells you that, yes, the indicators were looking good, but the transmission into the people's life were not clear. And this brings me to the question of the agenda for this particular 4 years of his administration. I'm not clear which agenda that is going to propagate. In the previous, his administration, the first term, he clearly indicated that his Ghana should go beyond aid, by the time he finishes his administration. Going beyond aid in a nutshell tells you that the country is self-sufficient. The country will be self-sufficient and all those. And a country that is self-sufficient, more or less, the people are, working, they go up and down, doing their businesses, and in the end, revenues are being generated from their movement and all those. And if, in effect, the country will not rely on grants and aids that are coming from these our Bretton Woods institutions that dictate to us, what we're supposed to do, for their bidding and all those. So clearly, I'm a bit confused as to which agenda the current administration will propagate. But then let me also chip in something on the closeness in the numbers in Parliament.
Yeah.
You see, as a country, we need to have the national, agenda in focus. If a parliamentarian is sitting in parliament, we should understand that he's wearing two hats. He's more or less looking at the national agenda and at the same time look at the party agenda. But there are some situations that you should allow the national agenda to, supersede the what do we call it, the party's agenda. Now we are thinking about establishing a government that will not slow down, government businesses. And so, for me, if I sit here and I'm to face a panel, and I'm looking at establishing, having a nominee who is able to deliver, of course, I should have my national interest to tell you that this person cannot do well or this person can do well. Absolutely. A situation where you ask a minister about, his own ministry that is supposed to inherit, he doesn't even know next to nothing over there. And it becomes, questionable, the kind of people we are placing. And I ask myself in this sauna, I want to see the government, the president setting up, more or less a target for those ministers.
Well, there was the Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation. That was the specific, in fact, one of the objectives of setting up that ministry. They evaluated the ministers in the first term. We never saw
any
whatever
report of that
KPIs
sort
they gave to them.
This was the benchmark that you made up to this point or not. We didn't see that.
No
now,
KPI.
This time, I don't want to see just a decorated minister moving around without delivering. The country has come far. Look at our debt level. We cannot afford to go by that direction. You cannot incur losses in your ministry and think you are still a minister. So for me, as we are going into the next phase, you should tell us clearly what is the national agenda. If it is, going beyond aid, you can water it down and say, hey, employment for all. If it's employment for all, it's more or less building up into Ghana going beyond aid, because we are all working and you can generate the necessary revenue from your human resource capacity. I believe that, we will not rely on these inflows that we get freebies that they take to us.
Because, the freebies is not going to come. There's an aid crunch now because of COVID. So even that avenue that we may rely on may not, come into fruition, at least from what we are seeing on the global economy now. But you see, even the UK is cutting out on foreign aid. We've seen that, in fact, they are actually now revising their aid relations and making it trade relations. They now want to enter into trade relations.
It's supposed to be business.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is a win-win situation. But there's a point that you make, about the objective. I listened to Kojo Polkroma when they completed the cabinet meeting at the Pediasi Lodge on Saturday. They addressed the press. He gave an indication of how the exact position of this administration for the next 4 years. Talk about regaining the economic target, a macroeconomic target that we had lost because of COVID, and then also consolidating some of the gains they had already made. Looking at the reality that we're confronted with now between 2021 and 2024, are these macroeconomic targets feasible?
Well, it's going to take time. Let me tell you, the rate at which economic indicators decrease, right, normally is, it's not the same rate that they used to climb. The decrease normally comes sometimes instantaneously. Like what the COVID did. Yeah. Sharply, we dropped. But for us to, climb up, we have to really do a lot of investment, a lot of strategic decisions when it comes to, for instance, the president announced 100 billion worth of Obantampa policy, which I know the SONA is going to dwell on that. Let me tell you, that 100 billion might not necessarily happen in the first year. But then if strategically we are going to build up, and so every year we'll spend a quarter of such funds into, this policy. Obviously, by the time he ends the fourth year, we should, realize at least a percentage of the achievement of, this policy. But then in the end, if we are turning around to say that, hey, aggressively, we want to achieve this within the first year, trust me, we might take decisions that will not really, help us. We should look at, governance as a project, where you deliver in the fourth year, but then gradually you build up with the option to expand and all those, technicalities coming in. We shouldn't just take it as if, okay, fine, by hook or crook we must deliver. to which, even if we are borrowing, we are not sensitive whether, the monies are going into areas that can pay for itself or stand alone, ventures and all those for the government. We don't look at that. So for me, I think we should look at this, target as more or less the 4-year project. But let me also chip in this. You see, the problem that we have in this country is that if you take our expenditure, the catalog of our expenditure in our budget, I can split them into two. We have the discretionary component, and then we have the non-discretionary component. The non-discretionary components are not problematic. Those ones that interest payment, salaries and all those, they are fixed. Even if there's an adjustment, it comes with a certain, formula. So it becomes easy to project into the future how much you want to spend. But the problem we have is the discretionary part, which goes into emolument for Article 1, I think
71
Doc will help me, Article 71 workers, and then infrastructure.
Yes.
I foresee a research that I'm doing to relate, this non-discretionary, discretionary expenditure to, our debt levels. And I believe that there will be a strong correlation, realizing that how we spend, that at the point where we have control over the spending, we are not able to manage it very well. That is what is eating us up. So I think going forward, we should look at that direction. We should look at the discretionary expenditure and see how we can manage it very well. Because, like you said, this time every country is looking inwards.
True.
Okay? If you are looking inwards, then possibly you have to make sure that what you spend, you're able to generate up to a certain level. Not necessarily opening up and then say, hey, I want to spend this, give you roads here, give you that here, give us. Even some of the roads, they do it within 3 days, the roads are gone.
That's a point you make. Dr. Lord mentioned that. And Kelly, it ties into this recommendation that, look, that we should find innovative ways of generating revenue going forward in this way, looking at some of the expenditure items and how we can reform them as well. But I want to go to you, Dr. Kwesi on this one, because in as much as we would review expenditure items, there are other avenues that we can also raise revenue. For instance, cutting down the wastage and various aspects of government business. Now, the Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation, which some people have their own opinion, didn't really do any good in monitoring and evaluating, so we cut down the waste in the ministries that are not doing well, has been scrapped. How do we identify the wastage, make a clear case that these ministries are wasting money, and so we have to find a way and cut them down and put in policies to do that, so we raise revenue in that regard?
Thank you so very much for this question, which I think properly should have been directed at not me. Not because it's an economic matter, but let's take it this way. If you are an individual, let's say a university lecturer, your salary is 6,000 Ghana cedis a month, and your expenditures are 7,500, you are in trouble. So what you do is you cut out, you prioritize and reduce. You cut your quote exactly according to the amount of material available to you. The same with government. The same with government. You don't even need a Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation to be able to do that. You should know where money is being wasted, and you should know which projects are not really top priority and can be suspended for the time being. So if we are not doing that, then as a government, we are not exercising the kind of wisdom which the very, very ordinary worker exercises every day in his or her life. My salary is 6,000 cedis as a university teacher. I cannot continue to spend 7,500, 8,000 a month. I must prioritize. In fact, if it becomes necessary that I and my wife take out breakfast and the children only take breakfast, we will do that. So there's something we are not doing right. Whether your Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation, and don't forget, we have operated government for so many years without this kind of ministry.
True.
You should be able to prioritize, to cut out what we are not doing that.
In fact, before the centralized M&E ministry,
Yes.
every ministry had
its
an
own.
M&E.
This own monitoring evaluation unit.
Yes.
But you see, then that breaks up the question of, for instance, the prioritization of policies. I want to dwell on that because if you look clearly at big ticket expenditure items like, say, free SHS, even before COVID, the finance minister himself conceded that, look, we cannot continue on this path. That's an honest admission of what the situation would be because of the amount of money that we're pumping into free SHS. Now COVID has come. We haven't really had a clear statement from the presidency that they're going to amend the implementation of that program to adopt the targeted approach that the likes of you, Dr. Lord Mensah, and many have recommended that, look, target the people who can pay and let them pay, and those who cannot actually be supported to go through the scheme. Something like this, and balance it with the political, interest as well that a government would have. How do you go through it?
Well, between what is necessary, absolutely necessary, and what is not, you should choose that which is very necessary. You have given just one example of free SHS. Some parents who can afford to pay, and I believe very many, if you were to do due diligence, most probably 40-45% of Ghanaian parents will be able to pay their own children's school fees. And then you have a small number that the entire nation can bear the cost for. But it is not only in that area. I am saying that a lot of the times we are undertaking projects for political reasons of political sentiment. There's no economic rationality behind the project. And this is the kind of thing you should hold the bull by the horn. And then if we are going to do what people will applaud us for, and not something that will contribute to the productive economy, my brother, we are going to be in trouble.
Wonderful. Dr. Malta, I want to take your thoughts on it. The president has arrived, just so I put it out, the president has arrived at the presence of Parliament. That's where the State of the Nation will be delivered. And this is the discussion preceding what the president is going to say. My panel of experts here are giving from their own analysis the state of the nation from how they see it through their lenses. Dr. Malta, before I come to COP on the state of security. Yes.
All right. I also want to resonate with what my colleagues just mentioned, especially, it has to do with wastage in the system, especially if you do not plan and prioritize expenditure. What happens is that you end up even doing things you don't need. I think some time back we even came here when the minister delivered the transitional budget. There were a couple of capital expenditure. We allude to the fact that, look, we all allude to the fact that it wasn't necessary. At this point in time, when you have COVID on hand to fight, you are addressing crisis, and we need more creative measures, creative policies to address the immediate term. Then we can be looking at capital project in the long term. Now, I want to once again resonate with what my senior colleague just mentioned, Doc. You see, we live in a country where people embark on projects without a revenue line. They only will award contracts, which will trickle down to the average Ghanaian. Here we are, you have a number of roads that are even awarded without any revenue line. You are talking about a municipal assembly or a district assembly, which had a revenue line of probably 1 million Ghana cedis, doing things which transcend beyond even 5 million Ghana cedis. Where do you get the balance? Now, at the end of the day, we always dwell on the deficit, the budget deficit, hoping that, look, the truth is that here we are, every country today is looking inward. COVID is a pandemic thing. We are all suffering from it. So aid has reduced. The normal concessionary loans that you get, you wouldn't get it again. Even in the bond market, who has the money to give you?
All the monies are going to the US.
That is it, because they need it. They need it more than us. Now, and if you want to go in now, it's expensive. You pay more. So you see, we've gotten to a stage that today, for me, I want to expect that the president will come out with the policy document on economic recovery amidst the COVID-19, which we had. And I want to really go into this document to really apprise myself with it as to what they have in stock for us. And in fact, I just want to mention this before probably we have to go, probably a little bit away from. I'm so much particular with the banking sector. And today I want to hear whether the president will mention this. We spent over 21 billion Ghana cedis to revamp the banking sector. The question is, the corresponding entry where we have those who owe these banks, they are still in this country. Are we collecting the money? What are we doing to those people? I hope the president will probably mention that, and then we will see what is going, because accountability is necessary. The taxpayers' money. Chairman, I guess you hardly will look through the tax every month.
I mean, it's
those days I don't want to look through my pay slip at all. I just go and withdraw my money and leave.
then you move.
The tax component is so high, and these are taxpayers' money they are using to revamp this industry. But the question is, are the debtors paying?
True.
Those who owe the bank. We know there are some politically connected people who are indebted to these banks. And here, the lockdown, to a large extent, it's in their benefit. So we want the president to tell us what they are doing. Especially, I'm sure probably there will be a report on that today. So
hopefully. But accountability is key, obviously, and you talk about punitive measures where the need be serve as a deterrent, because certainly we're going to have a very fledgling financial sector for that matter. Doc, I know you have to leave, and so I want to chip in something quickly. In your view,
I wanted to add something on what Dr.
on the banking sector. Then I'll ask my question. So you just put it.
Not necessarily the banking sector, but I'm looking at the closeness of the numbers in Parliament, which has a tendency of impeding government businesses. Because now that we are all looking inwards, we should be able to create the necessary environment for us to attract foreign investors.
Yes.
And I've heard people drumming on that. Increase FDI. You can't increase FDI when you don't have the acceptable, environment for them, to receive them.
The argument that those who think we should look at increasing FDI is because even in the COVID era, from March 2020 to December, the GIPC was able to hit its target of the $1 billion that they set for 2020. So
very good.
They do the analysis that looking at those dynamics, it could play out, all things being equal.
Yeah, sure.
In this instance as well. You don't think that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible, but then we should do more. Now I can see a situation where we're going to have those tax dynamics again, where any time the finance minister will mount the podium, there will be an introduction of taxes here and there, which will create the investor uncertainty again. And in the end, you might not necessarily attract the FDI as we had, in 20 years, in those years. So effectively, it's very, very important to know your tax levels and where to place them, and make sure that you don't create that kind of chaos, where nobody knows where you're going to place your tax in the next moment. You will not attract the necessary FDI.
So, simple economics. We don't have money. And so, yes, that's a fact.
We don't have money, but you have to make sure that you create money.
True,
in your own
we have to
environment.
create money. So, if we accept that we don't have money, what are some of the expenditure items we can cut down? In your view, 1 minute. Free SHS, should we look at a wholesale financing or targeted financing in the midst of COVID, as COVID has impacted on the economy this way?
Clearly, I mean, even with the free SHS, if you go by the target means, you shouldn't struggle to identify those who really need them. By the time you categorize the schools from A class to the lower class, you will get to know the percentage of each, really indeed needed student, within these categories. If you go to the A class schools, you will not get the needy student. You will not get more than 5%, which those days I used to form part of. Then you go to the next category, which will be the B class. Then the volume increases a bit. I mean, you get so with this kind of stream of targeting, we should be able to survive, keep this free SHS going without necessarily doing that wholesale.
So
I support the target base.
Targeting,
targeted
financing of free SHS.
Sure.
against the
It shouldn't be
wholesale.
tough to do that.
It
Anyway.
shouldn't be tough.
Yes.
COP Bright Odro, investment into the security agencies, because we're talking about creating an enabling environment. Security is key to attract investors in the midst of COVID. President Akufo-Addo has arrived at the President of Parliament, where the State of the Nation will be delivered. He's been ushered to his seat now. COP, so what are the specific investment areas of investment into the security agencies that would help us address these issues that you raised earlier?
I think training is key, very, very key. And the way and manner we also recruit. I think these days, the protocol recruitment. So we don't actually do the necessary background checks before they are recruited into the police. And I'm sure the other security services. So recruitment process must be also key.
On merit, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course training. Somebody is recruited, he goes to training, and after the training, he doesn't have any training again, maybe until he gets to the rank of inspector. So that is not, I don't think that is a very good idea. So training is key, recruitment is also key. This protocol arrangement must stop. This protocol arrangement must stop, so that we recruit.
It's something that's been with us for God knows how long. I'm sure when you were there, it was still an issue.
There were protocol arrangements, yes. But sometimes even the head of the police will make sure, if you are bringing in somebody, you make sure that you bring the correct person, the proper person, the person who qualifies by police standards. But these days, it's not like that. The names are just prepared and sent.
So what I've, and confirm this is if it's the case, that most of these private security or vigilante groups or members of the political parties are the ones who are promised jobs in the security agencies when the political parties come into power. And so you see a lot of them getting in there. It is the case.
That is the case. That is the protocol arrangement I'm talking about. And I said it will not help us at all, because it is a future of police that we are building. So if you bring in material that is not good, of course, what kind of police are we building for the future? So that recruitment process where they say protocol must be addressed, must be looked into, so that even if you want to help party members, at least we can take those that qualify by police standards.
Right.
We always have them.
Very important point to make there. On that note, we're going to cross over to the President of Parliament now. COP Bright Odro, the former Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of Ghana Police Service. In studio with us, Dr. Lord Mensah is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, is an economist as well. Dr. John Mauto is a dean of the Graduate School, University of Professional Studies here in Accra. Dr. Kwesi Jonah is a senior researcher at the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG. Stay with us as we cross over to Parliament.
Of the Ghana Armed Forces in the House. His Excellency, the President, is here in accordance with Article 67 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana to deliver a message on the state of the nation to this honorable House. On behalf of leadership and honorable members of this august House, it is my privilege and singular honor to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic to the House. Honorable members, order. Honorable members, you are addressing the Speaker. Order in the House. Honorable members, I have the greatest pleasure in inviting His Excellency the President to deliver his message. Your Excellency, you may now deliver your message.
Mr. Speaker, it is always good to be back in Parliament and to discharge the duty in accordance with Article 67 of the Constitution of delivering to the House a message on the state of the nation. I am particularly delighted as this message is the first of my second term. The validity of which was unanimously upheld last week in a well-reasoned and excellent ruling by a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court, presided over by the Chief Justice on 4th March 2021. In accordance with protocol and convention, it is good to see that First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo, Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia, Second Lady Samira Bawumia, the spouse of Mr. Speaker, Chief Justice Enin Yabua, and Justices of the Supreme Court, re-elected Chairperson Nana Otuo-Sirbo II, and members of the Council of State, the new Chief of Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. James Opombuenu, and service chiefs are all present, as are the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Let me use this opportunity to congratulate once again the Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honorable Alban Kingsford Sumani Bagban, on becoming Speaker of the 8th Parliament. His has been a distinguished career, having entered the first Parliament of the Fourth Republic in 1993, and I came to meet him in the second Parliament in 1997. He has been Majority Leader, Minister of State, one of the 3 wise men in a previous government, second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and now finds himself in this elevated position of being the 3rd most important person in the governance structure of our country. It is wholly appropriate that at such a crucial period in the history of our country, my senior in Parliament and I should work together for the well-being of the Ghanaian people. Mr. Speaker, I wish you well in the discharge of the duties of this high office. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, I was here for the first time as President of the Republic, having won the election of 2016 and having inherited a faltering economy and an expectant people. Between that time and 2010, I sought to deliver on the mandate reposed on me and my party, the New Patriotic Party, and gain once again the confidence of the Ghanaian people. It was by no means a straightforward task. We were able to deliver on most of our 2016 promises, in spite of the considerable challenges we confronted and the setbacks we encountered, we were confident our record in office would put us in good stead before the electorate and earn us a second term in office, which it did. It means that the reason for which the Ghanaian people went to the polls on 7th December, that is to seek an improvement in their living standards and the rapid transformation of the economy, must continue in earnest. It means that the clarion call of 4 more for Nana and the MPP to do more for you must be realized, and I intend to do so. The commencement of this process has been facilitated by members of this House, and I'm thankful to you for enabling government to be duly constituted. The expeditious and thorough manner in which my ministers were scrutinized by the Appointments Committee and the approval by the full House of each of the 29 substantive ministers was for me an indication of the collective determination of both sides of the House, with mutual regard for each other, to work together for the good of the country. This is what the Ghanaian people demand from us by insisting on virtual parity in the House between the two major parties of our country. The realization of the Ghana project and not the attainment of narrow partisan interests must be the guiding principle of the business to be conducted in the House. As President of the Republic, I give my commitment, my firm commitment to this end, and I assure Mr. Speaker and the legislature of the cooperation of the executive in this endeavor. As I indicated in my acceptance speech on the night of 9th December 2020, now is the time for each and every one of us, irrespective of our political affiliations, to unite, join hands, stand shoulder to shoulder, and work hard to place Ghana where she deserves to be. Mr. Speaker, in the face of a global pandemic that has ravaged lives and livelihoods in all parts of the world, we cannot afford to pursue interests that will leave our nation and its citizens the poorer for it. COVID-19 has impacted heavily on economic activities, created uncertainty, weakened global growth conditions, whilst putting undue strain on already weak and fragile health systems, particularly in developing countries. Mr. Speaker, between 2017 and the first quarter of 2020, we had made considerable gains in the management of the national economy, where we witnessed annual average GDP growth of 7%, single-digit inflation, reduced fiscal deficits, with 3 consecutive years of primary surpluses, a relatively stable exchange rate, a significant improvement in the current account with 3 consecutive years of trade surpluses, strong foreign exchange reserve buffers, markedly reduced lending rates, and appreciable job creation. According to the COVID-19 Business Tracker Survey conducted by the Ghana Statistical Service in collaboration with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the World Bank, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to job losses, with many Ghanaian businesses and firms being forced to cut costs by reducing staff hours, cutting wages, and in some cases, laying off workers. This survey, again, showed that about 770,000 workers had their wages reduced, and about 42,000 employees were laid off during the 3-week partial lockdown imposed on the Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi metropolitan areas and their contiguous districts, Tema and Kasua. Government, however, succeeded in protecting the jobs and incomes of all public sector employees. Indeed, the cost of COVID-19 has been enormous. Our overall economic growth rate for 2020 was reviewed downwards from 6.8% to 0.9%. The non-oil economy was also revised from 6.7% to 1.6%. Revenue shortfall was estimated at 13.5 billion cedis, with additional expenditures related to stemming the tide of COVID-19 estimated at 11.8 billion cedis, with a combined effect amounting to 25.3 billion cedis, or 6.6% of GDP. The resultant fiscal deficit for 2020 was thus revised from 4.7% of GDP to 11.4% of GDP. This was done to reflect the impact of the pandemic. The fiscal responsibility rule of keeping a deficit within a threshold of 5% of GDP and a positive primary balance for every year was suspended in 2020 to enable fiscal operations accommodate the impact of the pandemic. I indicated at the time that we know what to do to bring the economy back to life. What we do not know how to do is to bring people back to life. That is why government did not hesitate to institute measures to protect the lives and livelihoods of Ghanaians, even if it was to the temporary detriment of our much sought after fiscal stability. The formulation and implementation of the COVID-19 preparedness and responsible plan, tracing, testing, treatment, waiver of personal income tax, and provision of an additional 50% basic salary allowance to healthcare workers, expanding the capacities of laboratories to increase COVID-19 testing, establishment of isolation centers in all regions and districts, fumigation of markets and schools, provision of food packages and hot meals for residents in areas affected by the partial lockdown, provision of free water for all households, provision of free electricity for lifeline consumers, and a 50% discount for all other consumers, reduction in the communication service tax from 9% to 5%, the institution of a 750 million CD loan facility for micro, small, and medium enterprises through the CAPBUS initiative and the provision of a 2 billion CD guarantee facility to support large businesses such as schools and pharmaceutical companies are amongst the several measures put in place by government to cushion Ghanaians from the impact of the pandemic. Support has also been forthcoming from the Bank of Ghana under its brilliant leadership, which has lowered the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points to 14.5%, reduced the primary reserve requirement from 10% to 8%, reduced the capital adequacy requirement from 13% to 11.5%, and reduced interest rates on the Ghana reference rate to 200 basis points. The Ghana Revenue Authority has also extended the days for filing of taxes from 4 months to 6 months after the end of the base year, issued a waiver on VAT, National Health Insurance Levy, and Get Fund Levy on donations of equipment and goods for fighting the pandemic, waived income taxes on third-tier pension withdrawals, and permitted the deduction of contributions and donations towards COVID-19 as allowable expenses for tax purposes. Mr. Speaker, my government found the resources to cushion the impact of the pandemic because we are good managers of the economy. And we are good protectors of the public purse. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has exposed the need to expedite the process of moving Ghana to a situation beyond aid. That is why government has developed and is currently implementing the 100 billion CD Ghana Cares Obaltampa program to transform, revitalize, and modernize our economy and return it to high and sustained growth for the next 3 years. The key projects under the CARES program include: A, supporting commercial farming and attracting educated youth into commercial farming. B, building the country's light manufacturing sector. C, developing engineering, machine tools, and ICT digital economic industries. D, fast-tracking digitalization. E, developing Ghana's housing and construction industry. F, establishing Ghana as a regional hub. G, reviewing and optimizing the implementation of government flagships and key programs. And H, creating jobs for young people and expanding opportunities for the vulnerable in society, including persons with disabilities. The establishment of the National Development Bank under the Ghana Cares program is expected to provide financial support to businesses in Ghana. Government expects economic activity, which has already picked up, to do so even further following the ongoing vaccination exercise and the easing of restrictions put in place to curb the effects of the disease. We expect GDP growth to rebound strongly this year to nearly 5%, above the IMF's 2021 January projection of 3.2% growth for Sub-Saharan Africa for 2021. The medium-term outlook supported by the implementation of the Ghana's CARES program is bright. We are confident that together we will emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic with a stronger and more resilient economy. Mr. Speaker, if we are to see the rebirth and growth of our economy, our people must be healthy and not succumb to COVID-19. On 24th February, government secured the first batch of vaccine doses from the COVAX facility. The vaccination campaign is currently ongoing, with 262,335 number of Ghanaians receiving the first dose of the vaccines as at 10:30 a.m. this morning. The target is to vaccinate 20 million Ghanaians, and government is working hard towards realizing this goal. We remain on course to taking delivery of some 17,600,000 vaccine doses by June, with more to come in the course of the year. I want to urge members of the House to lend their voices to the public education campaign currently ongoing with regards to the vaccination program. The vaccine, together with strict compliance with the safety protocols, is what will allow us to open up our country again and embark on the quest to restore normalcy to our lives and livelihoods. Government is also mindful of a problem associated with vaccinations, and that is how to dispose of used PPEs, vials, needles, and syringes that are being used in the vaccination exercise. Government is collaborating with the private sector to establish 14 medical waste treatment facilities across the country to help address once and for all the safe disposal of medical waste. The pandemic, Mr. Speaker, has emphasized the need to expand access to health care for every Ghanaian, irrespective of his or her location. And I want to thank again and again all our frontline healthcare workers for their devotion to duty and sense of patriotism. The great amount of work undertaken by government has meant that we presently have some 307 functioning and well-equipped ambulances under the One Constituency, One Ambulance initiative, supported by a state-of-the-art digitized command center to field emergency calls and to dispatch ambulances. Last year, 33 major health projects were approved for implementation at a cost of 890 million euros. Key amongst them are the Koforidua Regional Hospital, Tema General Hospital, the Nephrology and Urology Center at Kolebu, redevelopment of the Fia and Kwanta Hospital into a teaching hospital, and the construction of a new regional hospital at Aguna Kwanta in the Western region. As announced last year, Agenda 111, which will see to the construction of 100-bed district hospitals in 101 districts with no hospitals, 7 regional hospitals for the new regions, including one for the Western region, the construction of 2 new psychiatric hospitals for the Middle Belt and Northern Belt, respectively, and the rehabilitation of Mfia Kwanta Hospital in the Western region is on course. Construction of some of these hospitals has commenced and will continue without interruption. Agenda 111, the largest ever investment in healthcare
infrastructure in our history. It's part of a massive vision for Ghana's healthcare sector, the realization of which will lead to Ghana becoming a center of medical excellence and a destination for medical tourism, and will also see us achieve the following. Each of the 16 regional hospitals will be designated as a center of excellence in the different specialties of medicine. For example, orthopedic surgery, burns, plastic and reconstructive surgery, breast care center, fertility center, neonatology and pediatric center, neurosurgery and spine center, stroke center, heart and kidney center, and mental health center, to name a few. Secondly, continuously upgrade our medical curriculum and continue to train our young doctors and healthcare professionals in a world-class fashion. 3, incentivize the private sector to increase capacity to support demand in healthcare delivery. And 4, encourage Ghanaian medical experts in the diaspora to collaborate and join hands with us to help build and contribute to the realization of this noble vision. The West African region is estimated to reach a population of 500 million by 2020, by which time this vision would have been realized. Government will continue to invest in the health sector and will continue to recruit more health professionals in addition to the 100,000 recruited in my first term for our health facilities. Electronic medical record system, e-health deployment, is currently underway following its implementation in key health facilities like Kolebu, Konfuanoche, Ho, Tamale, and Cape Coast teaching hospitals, and several district hospitals in the central region. Upper East, Upper West, and Bono regional hospitals will go live on the e-health platform in 5 days. Mr. Speaker, when it was needed most, at the height of the pandemic, the ingenuity and creativity of the Ghanaians showed through, which caught the attention of the world. When PPEs were being sold on the world market at extortionist prices, largely because demand outstripped supply, we began producing them in Ghana. Scrubs, medical gowns, sanitizers, masks, and gloves. All of these essential to the fight against COVID-19 were produced in Ghana. In total, 14,600,000 pieces of personal protective equipment have so far been produced domestically for health workers, students, teaching and non-teaching staff of tertiary and secondary educational institutions. We are determined to make our own things, and the Akufo-Addo government will continue with the agenda of rapid industrialization, with the aim of transforming the structure of the Ghanaian economy from one dependent on the production and export of raw materials to a value-added industrialized economy. Under the One District, One Factory initiative, 232 projects are at various stages of implementation. These include 76 operating as 1D1F companies, whilst 112, including 5 medium-sized agro-processing factories and 63 common user facilities, are under construction. Open your eyes.
You'll see them. The Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation has made good progress on the bauxite exploitation program that will drive our industrial transformation agenda. We are in the final stage of an open and transparent investor engagement process and are in negotiations to select strategic investors to partner GIADEC for the bauxite mining and alumina refinery projects. The selected partners will be announced imminently. Similarly, the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation, GISDEC, has been set up and has begun its work in earnest. We have succeeded in attracting major global vehicle manufacturers under the Automotive Development Policy to set up in Ghana. So far, Volkswagen has produced 1,167 vehicles, Sinotruck 276 vehicles, and our own Kantanka has produced 400 vehicles. The Japanese conglomerate Nissan has also started the assembly of vehicles in the country. Mr. Speaker, our nation's food resilience has been severely tested over the past year. The closure of borders in the midst of the pandemic meant that we have had to depend largely on food we produced. We have fared well under the circumstances, largely as a result of the bold policies implemented by government since 2017, such as the Program for Planting for Food and Jobs, Rearing for Food and Jobs, the One Village, One Dam initiative, the One District, One Warehouse policy, establishment of greenhouse villages, revitalization of the cocoa rehabilitation program, and the reactivation of our aquaculture industry. I'm happy to inform the House that during this period of the pandemic, we have experienced no food shortages in this country. There have been increases in maize and rice yields by 110% and 48% respectively. We have, for the first time in a long while, become a net exporter of food, as opposed to the days of importation of tomatoes and plantain. Indeed, in 2019, we exported some 140,000 metric tons to our neighbors. We are determined to take full advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area to produce more in Ghana, to sell more to Africa and beyond as we move Ghana beyond aid. The agreement for strategic partnership between Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire has bound our two countries in even closer intimacy, especially in the cocoa sector. We have succeeded in aligning the cocoa production and marketing policies of the two countries and ensured that we do not continue to be victims or pawns of a global cocoa industry that is dependent on the toil and effort of our farmers. A new trading mechanism has been implemented and has ensured that a new cost item of 400 United States dollars per ton for every cocoa sold by the two nations, effective from the 2021 season, is paid to our farmers. Through the establishment of the Tree Crops Development Authority, government is determined to end the over-reliance on cocoa and develop other cash crops such as cashew, cotton, mango, oil palm, rubber, and shea. Government remains committed to the completion of the many harbors and landing sites, which are different stages of completion in Senya Breku, Discove, Elmina, Moray, Winneba, Gumwafete, Teshi, Keta, Mumford, and Jamestown. Mr. Speaker, I am passionate about the education of every child in Ghana, because education opens doors. That is why one of my biggest concerns during this pandemic has been to safeguard the education of our children. All over the world, governments were forced to shut down schools as we did. However, we took steps to ensure that the education of our children was not truncated. Last year, bold and responsible decisions made it possible for JHS3 and SHS3 students to take their final examinations. And final year university students graduated. Currently, all our children from kindergarten to university are in school, studying in conditions of safety. This has taken place despite the outcry and opposition of some. I am required to provide leadership, and that is what I am doing. Government, through the Ministries of Education and Health, is doing all it can to ensure that the future of our children is not jeopardized by the pandemic. In 2020, the first batch of free SHS students wrote their WACC successfully. Results of the 2020 WACC indicates that more than 50% of candidates who sat the examination obtained A1 to C6 in all core subjects. This was an impressive WACC performance, with over 60% of candidates scoring between A1 and C6 in their best 6 subjects, including English and mathematics, which qualifies them for tertiary education. Mr. Speaker, 64 years after independence, we still do not have the critical mass of tertiary education graduates that is required for our socio-economic transformation. Currently, Ghana's gross tertiary enrollment ratio stands at 18.8%, which, albeit very low, is still one of the highest in Africa. We must therefore introduce measures to increase consciously the proportion of our population with relevant tertiary education to accelerate the transformation of our country. Our target is to increase the ratio from the current 18.8% to 40% by 2030, focusing on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM-related fields, with emphasis on engineering. This will be achieved by significantly increasing enrollment in existing public and private universities and through the establishment of an open university. We expect record numbers of enrollment over the next 4 years. Accordingly, we will fulfill our campaign manifesto promise by removing the guarantor requirement that makes it difficult for most students to apply for loans through the Student Loans Trust Fund program. As part of our commitment to the advancement of STEM, government will continue with the development of 20 STEM centers at 8 model sites, senior high schools across the country. These institutions will be fitted with state-of-the-art equipment and laboratories, which will facilitate teaching and learning in all areas, including artificial intelligence and robotics. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank this august House for passing the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 2020, Act 1023. The passage of this act has established the Commission for Technical Vocational Education and Training, CTVET, and the TVET service. All these will help to streamline delivery of TVET and avoid overlaps and duplication. We're also building 32 TVET institutions across the country to augment existing infrastructure for effective TVET delivery. In line with our commitment to address the issue of youth unemployment through TVET, government will commence the implementation of the Ghana Jobs and Skills Project this year. The project seeks to expedite the development of competency-based training curricula on the National TVET qualification framework for 100 trades, professions from level 1 national proficiency to level 5 higher national diplomacy, as well as training some 25,000 beneficiaries and provide entrepreneurial support to about 50,000 individuals. It will also seek to implement the Ghana Labor Market Information System, an upgrade of district public employment centers and services. A key objective of our effort to improve quality education and ensure that our students become globally competitive is to maintain the integrity of our examinations and assessment. In connection with this, government, working through WAEC, will introduce new measures to curb examination leakages and malpractices. I acknowledge that the teacher is at the center of every reform in the field of education. Prioritizing the welfare of teachers remains a key objective of government. After the restoration of teacher training allowances, government is now paying professional allowances to both teaching and non-teaching staff. Something you found very difficult to do in 8 years. I'm happy to announce the government is facilitating the acquisition of 280,000 laptops for members of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, GNAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, CCT, this year. Moving forward, the Minister for Education will soon detail an action plan for the implementation of the National Teacher Policy. Government has also introduced several interventions at the high school level. Some of these are the 198 million CD Academic Intervention Support Program, dedicated for extra classes for students in SHS. Implementation of free internet connectivity for secondary schools. Full absorption of BEC registration fee for all students in public junior high school from 2017 till date. And full absorption of WACC registration for students, which started last year. Mr. Speaker, our effort at digitization is gathering steam. When my government assumed office in 2017, we faced the challenge of a largely informal economy. The features of the informal economy included the absence of unique identification for citizens and residents of Ghana, and the absence of a working property address system across the country. Further, only a small proportion of our population was registered by the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, with tax identification numbers, TINs, and by SNIT for Social Security. 70% of the adult population did not have access to a bank account. Financial transactions were dominated by cash, and the processes of service delivery in most MDAs were largely manual and highly bureaucratic. It was in this context that we set about the process of formalizing our informal economy through digitization. Mr. Speaker, after 4 years in office, I'm happy to state that there's been more progress in formalizing the Ghanaian economy than there was in the previous 63 years since independence. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, we have enrolled 15.5 million people onto the national ID card system, the Ghana card. And we will complete the process this year. From 1st April, and this is not an April Fool's prank, all national ID numbers will become tax identification numbers. In so doing, the number of people registered by GRA from tax purposes will increase from the current 3 million to 15.5 million. I should recall that at the end of 2016, only 750,000 people had TIN numbers. The increase to 15.5 million in just 4 years is simply phenomenal. Similarly, from the second quarter of this year, all national ID numbers will also become SNIT numbers. This will increase the number of people on the SNIT database from 4 million to 15.5 million, making it easier for new contributors to be enlisted on the scheme. The national ID numbers will also become NHIS numbers. Very soon, we will link the national ID to all SIM cards, bank accounts, birth and death registry, DVLA documents, and passports. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, through the implementation of the digital property addressing system, every location in Ghana has a digital address. The process of affixing unique property address plates for some 7.5 million properties in all 16 regions has also started. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in Ghana, more than 70% of the population has access to financial services, either through a bank account or a mobile money account. We've been able to do so through the implementation of mobile money interoperability between bank accounts and mobile wallets, with Ghana as the first and only country in Africa to have done so. It is therefore not surprising that Ghana is the fastest growing mobile money market in Africa, Furthermore, our successful introduction of the Universal Quick Response Code for payments across banks, telcos, fintechs, and merchants will propel Ghana to be amongst the first countries in Africa, if not the first, to move towards a largely cashless economy when fully rolled out across the country with the support of the Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, we have also digitized the operations of many government institutions, including the ports, NHIS, DVLA, GRA, and the Passport Office. One of the most dramatic examples of this development has been the ability of SNIT to pay pensions within 10 days of application, as opposed to the endless delays of the past. To make it easy to obtain government services, a portal, Ghana.gov, has been established where all MMDAs are being onboarded. It is a one-stop shop where anyone can apply for and pay for a government service. We expect to complete the onboarding of all MMDAs this year, and in so doing, significantly enhance the efficiency and reduce the cost of delivery of government services to our people. Mr. Speaker, the Integrated Customs Management Systems, ICOMS, which is an end-to-end customs management system at the ports to enhance management collection of custom duties, has, despite initial resistance and controversy, succeeded in eliminating the multiple routes prior to payment of duties, ensuring seamless processes, increasing revenues, and speedy processing of manifest declaration and valuation on the same system. We have also integrated the Ghana.gov platform and the integrated tax application preparation systems, which allow taxpayers to make payments at their convenience online and through taxpayers' banks, and the use of mobile money, credit cards, and debit cards. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we have made significant strides in formalizing the economy, and we will do even more going forward. Mr. Speaker, our judicial system has not been left out of the digitization program. Today, the e-justice and e-case register initiatives, for example, are helping to ensure that the law keeps pace with technology, ending the age-old missing dockets phenomenon and endless litigations, which have plagued the efficient delivery of justice in the country for many, many years. Government, through the Ministry of Local Government and the District Assembly Common Fund, has commenced in an unprecedented initiative the construction of 90 courts with accompanying accommodation for judges across the country to help address the problem of inadequate court infrastructure. These structures are at advanced stages of completion. Again, through the same medium, 20 townhouses and a guest house are being built to be used as permanent residences for Court of Appeal judges based in Kumasi who are mandated to handle cases in the northern part of the country. With the coming into force of the Courts Regulation 2020 LI 2429 of 16 December 2020, the relevant sections of the Courts Act, Act 459, have been amended and has led to an expansion of the jurisdiction of the lower courts. Indeed, prior to the amendment, the monetary value of cases that could be heard by the district and circuit courts were 20,000 and 50,000 cedis respectively. Today, the district court's jurisdiction over cases brought before it has been increased to 500,000 CDs, whereas that of the Circuit Court has been increased to 2 million CDs. Mr. Speaker, this increase in jurisdiction will ensure that more cases are heard in the district and circuit courts, thus easing the burden on the high courts. All these measures will go a long way to enhance justice delivery in the country and help consolidate the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, when I appeared before this House on 4th January 2021 to deliver the last message on the state of the nation at the dissolution of Parliament, I called for a national discourse on the long-standing issue of illegal small-scale mining in our country. Yes, in the last 4 years, so much has been achieved in cleaning up this industry, training miners in the best methods of mining, introducing community mining, enacting additional regulatory legislation. But the reality is that illegal small-scale mining remains a major problem. I am confident that the new energetic Minister for Lands and Natural Resources and a Member of Parliament for Damango constituency, the Honorable Samuel Abujinapo, will rapidly facilitate the holding of this national dialogue and will work to build on the progress of his predecessors by enhancing regulation of this sector, which should be anchored on the protection of the environment and on community mining. Mr. Speaker, let me at this point assure the House that in the course of this session of Parliament, government will come back to engage the House on the steps it intends to take on the future of the Ejapa transaction. Mr. Speaker, land administration continues to be bedeviled with apparently intractable challenges. This year, government intends to roll out a program for the digitization of all land records for purposes of ensuring effective land administration. Aggressive afforestation will be pursued in the course of the year with the expected launch of a Green Ghana project, which will see the mobilization of Ghanaians in all fields of endeavor to participate in the nationwide tree planting exercise. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, Ghana won the bid to host and organize the 2023 African Games for the first time since the tournament started in 1965. A 9-member local organizing committee has been constituted and inaugurated to handle the technical and events aspects of the 2023 Africa Games. Government intends to provide maximum support to the LOC to help ensure we organize and host successful games. The construction of 10 youth resource centers across the country, which are at different levels of completion between 85 and 95%. We are as well renovating and rehabilitating many other abandoned sports facilities. We're paying allowances to about 1,000 athletes through the youth employment agencies. The Ghana Premier League has started, and hopefully, when we return to normalcy, capping of spectators at the stadiums will be a thing of the past. This is a proper occasion for me once again, on behalf of all Ghanaians, to congratulate the Black Satellites on their splendid victory in winning the nation's 4th Under-20 African Nations Trophy when they defeated Uganda by 2-0 on Sunday in Nouakchott, capital of the Republic of Mauritania. I call to the Black Satellites and to the technical and management team for their Independence Day gift. I look forward to receiving them at Jubilee House later this afternoon, after I am done with you, to receive them this afternoon. Hopefully, this should be the beginning of a new era of success for Ghanaian football. Mr. Speaker, the creation of the 6 new regions led to the establishment of 6 new regional houses of chiefs. In my tour of the country last year, I inaugurated these new houses and cut the salt for the construction of 6 new buildings for them, which are ongoing. Government, through the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, will continue to engage our traditional and religious rulers in matters of our common interest, such as the protection and preservation of the environment. Government is also determined to provide the funding necessary for the judicial committees of the various houses of chiefs to be able to do their work effectively and efficiently so as to bring closure to many long-standing chieftaincy disputes. Mr. Speaker, our nation continues to benefit from the year of return. Since then, we have intensified our engagement with Africans in the diaspora and all persons of African descent, more positively in areas such as trade and investment cooperation and skills and knowledge development, and what we call beyond the return. The Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, together with its implementing agency, the Ghana Tourism Authority, is working towards the realization of this initiative, which will bring even greater spotlight on our nation, Ghana. A lot of work has been undertaken in revamping our tourist sites and making them attractive. Digital revenue collection systems have been installed at the Elmina and Cape Coast castles, the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, and Vili waterfalls. Government has upgraded 5 tourism sites to meet international standards for increased visitation and create jobs and incomes for the people. The new minister for the sector, the industrialist Ibrahim Awal Mohammed, has also indicated his determination to strengthen the creative arts industry in Ghana. Already, the first ever creative arts senior high school, located in Kwadaso in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, is nearing completion. The governing board of the National Film Authority is in place, and even greater attention will be paid to this sector by government. Mr. Speaker, our quest to ensure an improved sanitation system across the country was bolstered last year by the commencement of construction of 16 integrated recycling and solid waste processing facilities. It is expected that all 16 facilities will be completed before the end of the year. The Sustainable Rural Water and Sanitation Project and the Water Supply Improvement Project of the Ghana-Spain Debt Swap Development Program have been completed. In September 2020, I joined the people of Amejofe, Ziope, Akbokope, Batume Junction, Mache, Jolobokame, and surrounding communities to commission the 5 piped water supply systems under the project. Concrete preparatory works have also commenced on a number of water supply projects across the country, including the Wenchi Water Supply Project, Keta Water Supply Project, 5 Districts Water Supply Scheme Phase 3, Tamale Water Supply Project, Damango Water Supply Project, and Yendi Water Supply Project. Our efforts at ending open defecation received a boost with the construction of 103,149 toilet facilities for vulnerable households in towns and villages across the country under the Household and Institutional Toilet Program. The cumulative result of this has been that some 822,000 persons have benefited nationwide. Some 5,500 communities have also been declared open defecation free. Mr. Speaker, in the energy sector, the National Energy Policy 2020 has been completed to improve the framework and strategies to meet contemporary needs, energy needs of the country. The government has improved the financial sustainability of the energy sector through several interventions, including paying up the energy legacy debts that you left. Furthermore, negotiations with independent power producers, the terms of whose contracts entail substantial financial charges on the state, are ongoing and should be completed by the end of the year. This should result in a more affordable cost of power for the Ghanaian people. Under the National Electrification Scheme, a total of 1,436 communities have been connected to the national grid, which has increased the national electricity access rate to 85.17% as of October 2020. My ambition is that by the end of my term, the figure will be 100%. The Ghana National Petroleum Corporation has accelerated petroleum exploration activities in the inland Voltaigne Basin. It has successfully acquired and processed 2,538 line kilometers of 2D seismic data, analyzed 1,537 geochemical samples, and established a working petroleum system. A gas processing plant terrain is being constructed in the western region to complement the Atuabo gas processing plant so as to increase dry gas delivery for power and non-power users. The Takoradi portion of the Takoradi-Tema Interconnection Project, TTIP, has been completed with an increased capacity of gas exports from Takoradi to Tema through the West African gas pipeline. GNPC and its private sector partners have advanced the work on the Tema LNG project, Sub-Saharan Africa's first LNG regasification terminal, which is expected to come on stream in the course of the year to improve gas supply reliability for power and non-power industrial applications. The facility will also become a hub of regional energy security, ensuring low-cost fuel for both Ghana and her partners in the ECOWAS community. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of my first term of office in 2017, government outlined its social development goals to include the promotion of gender equity and equality, survival and development of children, as well as the harmonization of social protection interventions and programs to contribute to the development of our nation. I'm pleased to inform the House that in the course of this session of Parliament, the new Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, the Honorable Sarah Adjoa Safo, MP, Member of Parliament for Domi Kwabenya, will resubmit to the House the Affirmative Action Bill. Our mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters are looking up to us. Indeed, it will make our society the richer. And I'm appealing to the House on both sides to make one big effort to ensure its enactment. The Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program, LEAP, has increased the number of pay points from 7,200 to 14,300 in order to make it easy for beneficiaries to access their grants. In all, a total of 334,438 households benefited from the program. The Ghana School Feeding Program currently feeds over 3,300,000 beneficiary pupils in some 9,000 kindergarten and primary schools, with one hot nutritious meal every day per child. Mr. Speaker, our commitment to the development of inner cities and Zongo communities is unwavering. Projects such as the construction of classroom blocks, astroturfs, establishment of ICT centers, installation of street lights, entrepreneurial and vocational skills training, supporting needy students, and the rehabilitation of access roads and drains have been undertaken. Another key policy initiative has been the reintroduction of the Arabic Instructors Program. The Zongo Coders Program and Start Hub program are initiatives meant to redirect the energies of young men and women of Zongo communities into productive ICT ventures. So far, several hundred young men and women have been trained under these programs. Mr. Speaker, activities of the then Ministry of Special Development initiatives, like those of the Inner City and Zongo Ministry, have been brought under the ambit of the presidency. The record of work undertaken in the ministry was remarkable. 568 units of 10-seater community water closets, 42 warehouses, 427 dams, 40 rural markets, 20 fully equipped community clinics, 307 fully equipped ambulances. Mr. Speaker, in the area of coastal management, we continue to improve the resilience of the country's coastline against tidal wave erosion that poses a significant threat to lives, livelihood, and properties of the people living along the coastline. Consequently, we've implemented a number of coastal protection works at Abuazi, Nkuntompo, Ajua, Blekusu, Elmina, Dansoman, Amanfu Kuma, Dix Cove, Axim, Cape Coast, Commander, Anumabo, and Ningo Prampran, which protect in all a total stretch of some 54 kilometers and at our various stages of completion. Government has also implemented the National Food Flood Control Program with the overall goal of reducing the incidence of flooding across the country. The construction of the multi-purpose Pualugu Dam project is aimed at mitigating the regular floods that occur in the White Volta Basin, covering parts of the Upper East and Northeast regions. Preparatory activities started in 2020 and will be completed by the first half of this year, with actual construction commencing in the second half of this year. Commissioning is expected in 2025. It is the single largest investment in the northern part of Ghana made by any government. Once completed, it will add 60 megawatts of hydropower and 50 megawatts of solar power to the national grid, thereby improving the quality of power supply in the northern part of Ghana. The 25,000 hectare irrigation scheme will be bigger than the total size of all irrigated projects implemented in the country since independence, and will boost food production in the northern part of Ghana, thereby boosting economic development in northern Ghana and creating jobs for the youth. Mr. Speaker, another important infrastructural development is the construction of the Buankra Inland Port, which will transform totally inland trade and ease the movement of goods and services, especially for traders, as well as for persons in our landlocked neighbors. The Korean contractors are due to start work any moment from now. Under housing, Mr. Speaker, the Government of Ghana Affordable Housing Program, which seeks to increase access to safe, secure, adequate, and affordable housing units across the country, is also continuing in earnest. Thus far, 1,464 units in Boteman, 1,027 in Asokore Mampo, and 312 housing projects have been completed in Kong. The Kuforidua, Tamale, and Wa housing projects have been handed over to the State Housing Company Limited for completion. Speaker, it is my intention to place special emphasis on resolving the problems of the housing sector in the country, because tackling the housing deficit is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, one of the ministries created in my first term as president was the Ministry of Railways Development, and the benefits of its creation are as showing. Government is mobilizing some $2 billion towards the development of railway infrastructure and services. To this end, government has rehabilitated a section of the narrow gauge Western Line from Kojokrom to Takwa through Nsota to facilitate the haulage of manganese from Nsota to the Takoradi port, and also to provide a passenger railway service along the corridor. Construction of a new standard gauge line from Kojokrom through Esiem to Mangso is also ongoing. A 500 million euro contract has been signed for the construction of a standard gauge railway line from Mansu to Huni Valley, a contract which includes the conversion of the narrow gauge tracks between Takoradi and Sekondi to standard gauge, and the development of standard gauge tracks from the Takoradi station to the Takoradi port for efficient and effective access for cargo handling. The development of the project will result in the construction of 102 kilometers of rail tracks between the port of Takoradi and Humni Valley. Contracts for standard gauge railway lines from Kumasi to Kasi, Kasi to Adriadin, Adriadin to Obuasi, Adriadin to Ajiso, with the linkage to the Buankra Inland Port, Mansu to Dunkwa, have all been signed. The Tema to Mpakadan Railway project is currently about 80% complete, with the rehabilitation of the railway training school and 2 location workshops being completed. The Ghana School of Railways and Infrastructure Development, a school under the George Grant University of Mines and Technology, has matriculated its first batch of students and will begin awarding certificates and diplomas in engineering and other related courses. Mr. Speaker, in my inaugural address, I declared 2021 as the second year of roads. This declaration is intended to continue to prioritize road construction so that road projects that started under the Sino-Hydro facility will be completed, as well as interchanges that are at various stages of completion. Specific details of the road projects are going to be outlined in the budget that will be read on Friday. Mr. Speaker, government has granted policy approval for the establishment of a national flag carrier, a home-based airline with strategic partner participation. The House will be duly informed on developments in this area. Construction of the second and third phases of the Kumasi Airport, the second phase of Tamale Airport, and the rehabilitation of the Sunyani Airport are all proceeding satisfactorily. A decision on the siting of the proposed airport and the central and western regions is imminent. Mr. Speaker, in order to revive the fortunes of the Metro Mass public transport system, government has provided a total of 100 new intercity buses for Metro Mass Transit Limited, an additional 100 buses for the Intercity STC Coaches Limited. The construction of a new dedicated container terminal at the Tema Port is ongoing, and 3 out of the 4 berths have been completed to facilitate maritime and inland waterways transportation. The development of a multi-purpose container terminal at the Takoradi Port is progressing. Removal of tree stumps along the navigable pathway at the Dambai to Dambai Overbank, Yeji Mankango, and Yeji Awojepo has been completed to improve the safety of navigation and reduce significantly accidents on the Volta Lake. The construction of ferry landing sites along the Volta Lake at Dambai and Dambai Overbank is 68% complete, whilst that of Yeji, Mankango, and Agodeke is 46% complete. In total, 7 rescue and high-speed patrol boats have been procured by the Ghana Maritime Authority and deployed into service to improve safety and security of our maritime domain and inland waterways. Mr. Speaker, our security services have been retooled and re-equipped substantially under this administration. Indeed, the first 4 units of 4-story blocks of 16 flats under the barracks regeneration project have been commissioned, and the remaining part of a 42-bedroom self-contained accommodation units for the 6th Battalion of Infantry and Airborne Force in Tamale have also been completed. Pickups, SUVs, trucks, high-occupancy buses, ambulances, and armored personnel carriers have been added to the inventory of the armed forces over the period, as well as the imminent completion of a forward operating base at Ezimlibo in the Jomoro district of the Western region. And in response to the creation of additional ranks within the military, government reviewed salaries and allowances for armed forces and civilian employees upwards, effective 1st January 2020. The capacity of the Ghana National Fire Service has been raised with the procurement of 5 sets of extrication equipment and 2 hydraulic platforms procured. Indeed, when I took office in January 2017, the police service had a total of 492 serviceable cars. Government has since then procured for the police 735 additional vehicles, including 15 operational buses, a feat unprecedented in the history of the service. 320 housing units are being constructed at National Police Training School to reduce the accommodation deficits of the service. Modern communication equipment and fragmentation project jackets have been procured and delivered to the service to protect officers and ensure effective policing. The construction of hangars at the police depot, Accra, for 4 helicopters already procured for the Ghana Police Service is 95% complete. An air wing unit has been established by the Ghana Police Service, and 6 police pilots have been trained and passed out to man the wing. A new K9 unit has been established with 30 dogs and 30 police officers. The Criminal Investigation Department has been equipped with a digital forensics laboratory, and for the first time in the history of the department, crime officers are given a monthly allowance to support their investigations. We're retooling the CID Forensic Science Lab. The CID building has also now become disability friendly, and there's continuing training of CID officers. 84 apartment units are being constructed at Odoko in Accra for the immigration services. and they are 98% complete. And their completion will help reduce the accommodation challenges faced by officers and men of the Immigration Service. Government is also constructing an 800 inmate capacity remand prison in Sawam, which is 60% complete. Its purpose is to reduce further overcrowding in prisons, as remand prisoners will now be kept separately from the convict population. Mr. Speaker, these large investments in equipping our security services is inspired by the recognition that the peace and stability of our nation are critical for our development, especially as we live in a difficult and sometimes dangerous world. Mr. Speaker, amongst the milestones of our international relations, I've been reappointed chairman of the authority of ECOWAS for a second term. Under my leadership and in collaboration with colleagues in the region, we have restored peace and political stability to Mali through a landmark transitional arrangement which brought under control a period of bloodshed and uncertainty, and which has committed itself to a roadmap for a peaceful democratic outcome from the tradition. In addition to strengthening and cooperation and deepening bilateral and multilateral trade and economic ties with host countries, it is exciting to note that presidential visits overseas have yielded significant dividends. The re-establishment of the Economic Trade and Investment Bureau of the Ministry has enabled the position of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a strategic partner to help facilitate domestic and foreign investments in the country. Indeed, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center has reported today a surge in foreign direct investment into our country of $2.1 billion United States dollars in 2020, compared to $1.1 billion the previous year, representing a more than 90% increase. Mr. Speaker, the sum total of all of this is that in spite of the ravages of the pandemic, our nation is still very much in rude health and remains very attractive to investors. Yes, we're reeling from the effects of COVID-19, but I am confident that with the progress of the vaccination program, we will recover quickly and work towards putting our nation back onto the path of progress and prosperity. We're building a more inclusive society, and soon things will work for all in Ghana. And then we will fulfill our true potential as the Black Star of Africa. Crucial to achieving this vision is my uncompromising commitment to strengthening the institutions of our democracy and managing public resources with integrity, fairness, openness, and accountability. Mr. Speaker, ours is not a government that shies away from public scrutiny. Far from it. That is not the NPP way. That is why in 2001, under the outstanding leadership of the second president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, and with me as his Attorney General, the criminal libel law was repealed to protect and expand media freedoms in the country. And in 2003, the Public Procurement Act was introduced to protect the public purse. That is why it was my government that took the bold steps in 2008 to bring about the establishment of an independent prosecutor with the setting up of the Office of Special Prosecutor. That is why it was my government that in 2019 enacted the Right to Information Act, which had been shirked by previous administrations despite decades of agitations and civil society groups and journalists. That is why within 2 years of being in office, we more than doubled funding for accountability institutions of state like SHRAG, EYOCO, the judiciary, and the Auditor General. Government and the people expect those in charge of our governance institutions to do their work with professionalism and good faith. Indeed, the institutions of our nation, whether the executive, legislature, or judiciary, are working. The Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker, for example, last week determined the challenge to the validity of the 2020 presidential election and affirmed this validity in a unanimous decision. Not 5-4, not 5-4, unanimous. Mr. Speaker, the court has spoken. It is time for all of us to move on and in a united manner confront the problems of post-COVID-19 Ghana. Let me, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, recall the following statement I made in my very first message on the state of the nation, on the Ghana I hoped to help construct. A statement which is at the heart of everything government has sought to do since I took office in 2017. This government will be defined by integrity, sovereignty, a common ethos, discipline, and shared values. It is one where we aim to be masters of our own destiny, where we mobilize our own resources for the future, breaking the shackles of the Galgisberg colonial economy and a mindset of dependency, bailouts, and extraction. It is an economy where we look past commodities to position ourselves in a global marketplace. It is a country where we focus on trade, not aid, a hand up, not a handout. It is a country with a strong private sector. It is a country that recognizes the connectedness of its people and the economy to those of its neighbors. This requires a forward-looking vision for our country, enabling us to confront our challenges and embrace our opportunities, not one fastened in the rear view mirror. It is a Ghana beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, I remain wholly committed to the fulfillment of this vision. May God bless us all and our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. And thank you.
Honorable members, order, order, order. Honorable members, order. Order. Honorable members, be seated. Honorable members, in accordance with Standing Order 58, I convey to His Excellency the President the gratitude of the House. Honorable members, again, in accordance with the practice of this House, a formal communication will be forwarded to His Excellency the President after the House has thoroughly debated this address. Honorable members, we have a lot of distinguished personalities who have come to grace the occasion. I'll now have the list with me. Honorable members, permit me to recognize the presence of the following dignitaries in the House. His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahmudu Bawumia, the Vice President of the Republic, is here with us for this special event. His Lordship, Justice Enim Yebua, honorable members, honorable members, I take it again. His Lordship, Justice Enim Yebua, the Chief Justice of the Republic, is also here with us. Honorable members, I also will want to welcome and appreciate the presence of Her Excellency Mrs. Rebecca Na Okwako Akufo-Addo, the First Lady of the Republic of Ghana. Also, Her Excellency Hajia Mrs. Samira Ramadan Bawumia, the spouse of the Vice President. The last but not the least, honorable members, I don't know which of you has a girlfriend called Ramatu, but we don't have any dignitary here called Ramatu. Honorable members, we also have the Left Honorable Madam Alice Ajua Yunas, spouse of the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament. Honorable members, apart from this, we have a list of dignitaries, including Nana Otuo Sribwa, Chairman of the Council of State, our own former Member of Parliament, now the Chief of Staff, Honorable Frema Osei Opare. We have the Right Honorable Professor Aaron Michael Okwe, former Speaker of Parliament. Professor, we are most grateful for your presence. We have Honorable Feasibility, Chairman of the New Patriotic Party. We have Honorable Samuel Ofusu Ampofo, Chairman of the National Democratic Congress. We also have Honorable John Boedu, General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. And our important traditional leaders, Adigbo Ngomo Wuya Kwesi Amle the Sixth, Osudoku Manche, and acting president of the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs. We have Nene Kano Atiepa III, Ningo Mankrelo, and acting president of the Ningo Traditional Council. We have Nana Tobukuo Dumali the First, Paramount Queen Mother of Adan. We also have Nana Lomoki Lomo, Ada Traditional Council, and Na Asabu Abe the First, Paramount Queen Mother of Prapram Traditional Area. Let me also recognize the presence of a number of ministers of state, my lords, members of the bench, distinguished members of the Council of State, and Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps. On behalf of honorable members of Parliament, I appreciate and thank all of you for coming to grace this occasion. Honorable members, I will now invite our leaders, starting from the majority leader, to give an indication as to where we move from here. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic has this afternoon, pursuant to Article 67 of the 1992 Republican Constitution, delivered to this House a message on the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, it's intended for us to begin the debate on the message beginning tomorrow. As we indicated to ourselves, we have just 2 days to do this. And accordingly, we'll begin the debate tomorrow at 10, and the House will have an extended sitting to continue on Thursday, and hopefully to end in the evening of Thursday the debate on the content of the President's message to the nation. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House takes an adjournment until 10 o'clock tomorrow in the forenoon. I so move.
May we also hear from the Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as noted by my colleague, the President Nana Addo Dankwa is here, has discharged his constitutional obligation, noting that Nana back, Ajapa back, with no comment on LGBTQ and no comment on the uninvestigated killings on December 7th, whilst we'll continue in the debate to remind him that we'll seek justice for Tajuddin Al-Hassan and Abdallah Ayarik. Now, Speaker, what is interesting is that we will debate the state of the nation and we will debate the present record. But today, interestingly, he is silent on our national debt. 4 years ago, he said, I inherited this debt. What is the state of our national debt? With this, Mr. Speaker, my task is a simple one, is to second the motion for adjournment. But as he himself said, he contributed to enhancing media freedom with the repeal of the criminal libel law. But under his watch, freedom of expression has been fractured and hampered with the closure of FM stations that are NBC approved. I beg to second the motion, Mr.
Honorable members, motion has been moved and seconded. I now put the question. As many as are in favor of adjournment, say aye. As many as are against, say no. Honorable members, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is accordingly adjourned till Wednesday, 10th March 2021 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Once again, I thank honorable members.
Well, so that is the end of the, this is what, 2 hours? A little over 2 hours, as a matter of fact. Over 2 hours presentation of the State of the Nation address by President Kufuor. In fact, it's the first in his second term as President of the Republic of Ghana, presenting the State of the Nation address to us. And he's exiting the President of Parliament. That obviously is another chamber of parliament in the bigger space because of the adherence to COVID-19 protocol. Parliament had to do it that way, but that has been the case over the period. This is Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution is what the President has fulfilled, that the President shall, at the beginning of each session of Parliament and before a dissolution of Parliament, deliver to Parliament a detailed message on the state of the nation. So that's what the President has done. And I've had a number of you say it is his view as the President of what the state of the nation is. Obviously being the leader of the managers of the economy. But you also have the state of your personal economy to tell us as well. And my guests who have been in studio with us since we started the pre-discussion ahead of the State of the Nation address have also put on their expert lenses to do some analysis from a dispassionate, highly professional point of view to put the issues in the right perspective for you out there. Juxtapose what the President has said with the facts on the ground. I still have in studio Dr. Kwesi Jonah. He is a senior researcher and a fellow at the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEC. I also have Dr. John Malto. He's the Dean of the Graduate School, the University of Professional Studies here in Accra. He's also a governance expert as well. COP Bright Odro is a former Director General of the Police CID, the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. I'm going to be joined via Zoom by Professor John Gachi, who is the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. He will be joining me via Zoom in a bit. But thank you so much for the patience to wait and have the President finish what he had to do. He is exiting the President of Parliament now. But I'm going to take 5 minutes each from you. What your takeaways are from this over 2 hour presentation. Certainly we can't exhaust all the areas within the next 30, 45 minutes that we have. I'll start with you, Dr. John Malto.
Thank you. I think for the past 2 hours, the President has really presented extensively the issues with respect to the economy, ranging from the service industry, the manufacturing industry, as well as agriculture. I think one particular sector which I will probably flag out first has to do with sports.
Sports.
For me, I think the president did not say anything about sports because he only commended the black satellite for the victory. But sports is one area we all know that another area for cash, to cash out there, because we have a lot of talent and there's this expectation from various governments to come out with a policy document as to how to streamline our sports, especially football, which is I would say the grandfather of sports. And we all know that globally football attracts more money than any of the sports. Now let's look at the economy itself. I'm very happy that the president was very, very frank with what we have. The fact that we have shortfalls. Even within the first quarter, we are talking about a shortfall of 13 billion, which we will have to raise. And then the fact that this government has been able to fulfill some of their commitment, especially the policy rate and interest rate in the banking sector. We also saw, and it was clearly evidence that the banking sector was crawling prior to his first State of Nation address. And at the time that we had the average Ghanaian borrowing at interest rate of, that's minimum, 30-35%. That was the minimum. However, even though the figures are reflecting that there's some conscious effort to reduce interest rate, on the average, we are talking about interest rate of 27%, which is still not good for a crawling sector. If you are still borrowing at 27%, then there's a big question mark. We all know the banks got to where they were because over a period of 5 years, they were lending. The banks were lending at an average of 23 to 25%. Obviously, you don't expect the enterprises to even recover some of their cost of operations, and that resulted in this banking, cleanup. So it's unfortunate we still haven't gone down because cost of capital is still expensive, and if you are to even make reference to the last BOG report, it tells you that the private sector is still stifled of funds. Absolutely. In that today, a significant percentage of investment by banks goes into the purchase of government bonds. So it tells you that we are not, the banks are not forwarding so much credit to the private sector.
True.
And we all know this because the banks are trying to be a little bit careful here. If you take a critical look at the income of all the banks put together, a chunk of their income comes from investment. It tells you that they are now focusing on doing what we call the lazy banking, which goes into, just protect your money.
Maybe you want to call it precautionary banking.
Yeah, I call it lazy banking.
Shying away from the excessively abnormal levels of risk.
Yeah.
Yes. Because now the levels of risk have increased because of multiple factors. Which I'm sure you, Doc, you do know very well. But let me welcome Professor John Gachi as well. He's joined us via Zoom.
Okay.
He is the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. He's an economist as well. Professor John Gachi, good evening to you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Great. So, Dr. Malto started on the tangent of analyzing what the economy is. I want you to land.
Okay.
Just land, and then I'll just connect Professor John Gachi on that point that you made about how we can now make the gains we are making in the reduction of the policy rate much more reflective in the private sector as well. John.
So that's the area we need to be looking at. If you really want to expand the private sector, then don't ease them out with interest rate. What we have to do is to consciously reduce the rate cost of capital so that they can have access to capital. Today, we are already in crisis. Okay, I mean, we have an economy that it's so difficult to raise funds because of what we find ourselves in. A chunk of our income has reduced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So here, some of the suggestion that has come from a number of contexts, like from analysts. Now, if the government want to do something, then that issue of churning out the stimulus packages as free, we could probably channel it into some level of cushioning the interest rate of the private sector. It's very, very important.
Well, but the stimulus package is actually with an interest, but the first year is interest free. Then I think after the second year you start paying 3%, some to 5% thereabout. Yes,
my brother. You see, realistically, let's face the fact. We may not have that opportunity to know the people who have been. So
essentially, your point is that this money is gone. Some may not
to
pay back.
To a large extent. There's some partisan, ink to it, and it is very, very important to know that some of us thought this should have been done through the mainstream banking, where people will know that this money is not coming from the government for political reasons, but monies that goes in there, which you have to use to develop your business and pay back. These are things that's a fear. But most importantly, let me probably before you move on to my good brother Professor Gachi, I want to commend the government for some of the interventions, especially when it comes to the waiver of get fund rate as well as the NHIS rates, and then the fact that anyone who contributes towards the COVID-19 fund will have that donation allowed as an expense allowed by GRA.
And non-taxable.
Tax deductible. I mean donation. I mean it was long overdue. If really we wanted people to donate towards the COVID-19 fight, we should have done this earlier. So hopefully on Friday we want to hear that all those things as promised by the president will materialize and they will be captured in the 2021 budget.
Fantastic. Let me bring in Professor John Gachi briefly. So, Prof, what shall it profit the private sector if after reducing the policy rate, the Bank of Ghana reducing the policy rate, government still crowds out the private sector in the commercial space in terms of doing business with the commercial banks? Prof.
I think that is what every manager of the economy would like to avoid. To ensure that the private sector is given the proper space to operate in terms of access to capital from the financial institutions at affordable cost to engage in productive activity, and that will benefit the economy and the people. But the rate of policy transmission has been very, very slow. In some cases, the response did not come. And the reason is very simple. See, policy rate reduction should be guided by certain specific economic indicators. Now, if you reduce policy rate because that is a choice you have made to contain COVID-19, it is not informed by economic indicators. Therefore, you do not expect the policy rate transmission to be effective. That is one. The time that you reduce the policy rate, at the same time, the cost of mobilizing funds, which is the greatest source of getting funding by the financial institution to engage in financial intermediation process, has not changed significantly. If you ask the banks, even borrowing among themselves is expensive, let alone going outside their own circle and mobilize from depositors, etc. is still very expensive. Then the next one is people are not considering the cost of integration of ICT into banking and financial sector. Most of these platforms and most of these technologies are changing from time to time. In fact, in some cases, within 6 months, the banks will have to change their system. The cost involved in that, which is transmitted into the computation of the cost of credit, etc., we tend to forget about them. So the real factors that determine the cost of money or the cost of loan, or in this case, lending rate, they are left intact. They have not been changed. And as a result of that, reduction in policy rate as a pronouncement, which is not guided by some of these things, will not see the kind of picture we expect to see. And that is the reason why the policy rate reduction is not accompanied by significant reduction in the lending rate.
So for you,
I think that is...
the president can tick the box and say, during my first 4 years, policy rate has been reduced by the Bank of Ghana over a certain percentage. In fact, from 26% to 14.5%. That's how much it has reduced. But then we don't have a corresponding reduction in the lending rate. It's okay to say that has been done. But then if the corresponding impact on the lending rate is not seen, it may almost be negligible. In your view, is that a point you make?
Yeah, that's a point I'm making. For the fact is there that policy rate started reducing from 2016 as a result of the engagement with the IMF program. That was one of the reasons why we engaged the IMF, and we saw policy rate reducing from that time up to 2020. And then I believe in 2019, we reached what we call the policy rate reduction peak. That is the reason why from that time up to today, you don't see any reduction anymore, because the reduction should be informed by real economic indicators, and they are not there. So you cannot just continue to be reducing. So I think that is the issue.
I see. But so where do we find the balancing effect? I mean, because now certainly the private sector and indeed the Ghanaian people cannot rejoice like how the president is happy about reducing policy rate, because we are not directly feeling the impact of the reduction in the policy rate as yet. How do we find that balance?
I think from political point of view, the president knows the difference between policy rate, the function of the policy rate, and lending rate. And he decided not to talk about lending rate because he knows when he gets to that area, he's talking about different things that is closer to the consumers of financial product rather than those who talk about policy issue using the policy rate, which is just an indicator, okay? Especially to the global economic situation as to whether the average interest rate is coming down or not. But the lending rate is the issue that the business people understand. The lending rate is what the entrepreneurs understand. The lending rate is what the household understand, because when they go to the bank, that is what they are dealing with. They are not dealing with policy rate, you know. So remember, talking about SONA is both discussing issues of the economy in reality and also discussing political choice. So we need to separate the two. What the economy needs, what our entrepreneurs needs, what our business community needs is how much do I pay when I go to borrow? Will I be able to use that money to do any meaningful investment in my business to influence economic activities in the country? I think that is the key thing that we need to focus on. And I've mentioned two important things: that mobilizing funds to redirect to various people who are looking for funding from the financial sector is still expensive. It's still very expensive, okay? And as a result of that, that is having a toll on the direction of lending rate in the country, even though you see policy rate reduction. When you come to COVID-19, which factor will you tell me influence the reduction in the policy rate? No, it is just a choice that government and financial authority have taken as their contribution to fighting COVID-19, to give some respite to business people who otherwise would have been paying higher rates. That is the reason why they even directed commercial banks to suspend payment of this thing. But all those things have cost. And the longer the situation stays, the deeper the cost of those policy choices will have on the activities of commercial banks. That is the fact that we are not talking about. So I think we need to appreciate that some of the decisions are only in the interest of COVID-19. They are not informed by economic indicators, and therefore, the more we are doing a delay COVID-19, the bitter the policies will be biting us.
So all things being equal, we for some time we start vaccinating a larger population and the economic activities get back on stream, we may see an increase in the policy rate, because from the analysis, the reduction in the policy rate was just a gesture because of the impact of COVID-19 on businesses over the period. Prof.
No, that is not necessary. I think the point I'm trying to address is, see, there is a reason why you have considered in your banking act, that's at 930, that the capital adequacy ratio is around 10%. Now, if all of a sudden, because of COVID-19, you decided to reduce it to 8%, what are you trying to say? Does it mean that a stronger banking environment that you want to create, you don't want it anymore? No. We all assume that the COVID-19 situation will last for a very short period. Let us sacrifice a little bit. That is the reason why you reduce the capital adequacy ratio to 8%. But when the situation remains for a longer period, that sacrifice would tend to be biting the banking system. And if you ask the governor, he will tell you, he will not tell you that those decisions are making the banking system very smooth. They are very bitter choices that have been made, thinking that the situation will be dealt with within a short period of time. Those are the issues I'm highlighting on.
Right.
So it does not mean that I'm expecting the policy rate to go up. For the policy rate to go up, it should be indicated by economic factors. And so if those economic factors do not inform that the policy rate should go up, it shouldn't go up.
Great. Thank you for that one. And Dr. Jonah, he made a point about, in presenting the State of the Nation address, you have in mind both the economic and the political indicators. It's a marriage that has never been convenient. But did you see the reality reflected in the President's State of the Nation, as you heard?
To begin with, let me make these points. The context in which the State of the Nation address was delivered is very important. A couple of days or so before his inauguration for his second term, he did one State of the Nation address. The 67 that we talk about provides for two types of State of the Nation address. One is at the beginning of a session of Parliament, and the other one is at the dissolution of Parliament. Yes. They are two different things. The one that is at the beginning of a session of Parliament is to help the President outline what it is that he has. To outline his program. Yes. How strong is the Ghanaian economy, and what am I going to do for this year? The one that is done before the dissolution of Parliament is more or less a summary of what you have done over the past 4 years. Now, looking at today's presentation, about 50% of it is something that should have come into what they have done over what the government has done.
Which was the January 5th.
Yes. A substantial part of it, I cannot give any percentage, but a substantial part of it would rather go into PFJ. You were exporting food. You were doing this. A lot of things that should have gone into that kind of zone. Then the second point is, it is a very optimistic statement. The economy is going to grow by 5% or so. even in the face of all the difficulties that he himself had outlined right from the beginning, had arisen because of COVID. So for the person who is listening to you, the person will have to know if the country has incurred revenue losses of so much, and so, the growth that we wanted did not come. How are we now going to achieve the 5% growth in GDP in order to improve the lives of the people? The how, I didn't see.
There was not so much on the how.
The how, I didn't see. And this is worrying. I say this, bear in mind that in just the next few days, the budget will be read. Maybe the budget will take care of the how. The budget statement will take care of the how. But finally...
But it's a very important point.
Yes. But finally, let me say that as a governance expert, I remember very well that in his 2020 manifesto, he promised that the people, his government will amend the constitution to enable the people to elect their own MMDCs along party lines.
True. So, you are expecting that that's going to happen?
Yes. But no, I expected at least some basic information when you what plans and nothing whatsoever. But this is not to say that I rejected. These are some of the.
But I know that IDEC, you did a lot of work.
Yes,
you did a lot of work in
and that's why I am raising this point at this stage.
Fantastic. COP, security. Yes, there wasn't much on it. That is, even if there was any mention of it at all. But your view on...
There was mention of, I think, security. Police housing units to be increased.
Yes.
Helicopters, 4 helicopters have been procured for the police. And then 6 officers have already been trained. That I know they were trained in South Africa and they are here. Except that I have not seen the helicopters. But then he said...
So this is what has been done?
Yes, this is what has been done. So we are expecting the helicopters, and I'm sure when they are in, it will have a positive impact on police operations. So that is a welcoming news for the police. And then he also talked about the crime lab being expanded with technology so that it can now render more services for the police.
But you mentioned a bit about recruitment. Looking at the strength of the police now, how many personnel do you think should be recruited? Dr. Jonah, you want to...
The police population?
The police population now is about 33, I think around 33,000.
33,000.
One police officer?
But one police, and the Ghana population about also 33 million.
Yes,
then it's about 1 to 1,000.
One policeman to 1,000
if it is 33,000, 33 million, then it's about 1 to 1,000.
But the UN recommends 500.
But that's the
500 is the minimum.
Recommendation.
So it should be better. It can be better than 1 to 500, like 1 to 400, 1 to 300, and so on. But he didn't mention recruitment.
Yes, that's what I was getting to. So now we know 33,000 police strength, personnel strength is what we have, but we need more. There was nothing mentioned about recruitment. Before the president made the State of Nation address, you talked about recruitment and the process that recruitment goes through at the Ghana Police Service. Although that was not mentioned, what are some of the reforms that you want to see? I mean, if we have to beef up the staff strength of the Ghana Police Service so that at least we meet the United Nations requirement.
Maybe he will mention in the budget, I don't know, the budget for Friday, how many more policemen that we need to recruit. I don't know whether he will do that when he presents the budget, whoever presents the budget. But as for reform, I think he mentioned the helicopters. I mean, it's very important that we have some helicopters to assist, to help at least some air patrols in the north where we've had these Fulani robbers having a field day. So if you have helicopters of the kind that he mentioned, I think that would be a significant achievement. And of course, the crime lab, it undertakes several services. Fingerprint analysis, serology, DNA test analysis, and so on. So if it is improved with technology, I think that will also aid the CID in conducting investigations.
The retooling of the Ghana Police Service. I spoke to a screen analyst some time ago who made the point that sometimes the likes of you are not even consulted before purchases or procurement is done for the service. So a politician just sits and decides that this is what I think, the police service should get. And they give you more cars, brand it, you do your parade on the road. We all see that you've been given 100 cars. But that may not be your core need. Is that the reality of the situation?
I think that is the system all over the place. District assemblies, they procure things for them. Police, the same thing. It used not to be so. Those days when we were younger in the service, when we had a bigger say in whatever we wanted. But now, it looks like the thing is procured for us, for the police, for use. And it is not only the police that has this.
Experiencing this.
Yes, everybody, every sector. I mean, people are buying for those other institutions of state.
But how much of a problem is that? I mean, that you don't have your views incorporated into what you are given.
Sometimes, yes. I think, like vehicles, for example, they may want the police, the Director General in charge services, travel along with some politicians to go and inspect some vehicles. So at least they may have some say in what they want, but not always. Not always.
I see. Great point. And at least the recommendations are adopted. But the motto, I know you're going to redirect me back to the economy and matters around.
That is
so I'm going to have you touch on that.
Yeah.
Round it up in 10 minutes. So I want to take your take on the other aspect of the economic interventions.
Okay.
Because the president talked about macroeconomic indicators.
All right.
That government has ticked.
All right.
But before the presentation, we admitted that it certainly would not be enough to look at the indicators if it's not reflective.
Okay.
In the lives of the people.
Okay. So it's important to look at the content. It's also imperative to ask questions, especially the Obatampa, program, which the president mentioned about 8 sub-programs that they've lined up to implement. The next question I ask as an analyst is where to get 100 billion from in the midst of pandemic.
That's a how.
Yeah, where?
So where is the Obatampa Cares 100 billion coming from?
Yes, I think I flagged out a number of programs, but the most important one is which I think is so much of interest to me, has to do with the commercial farming, as well as the manufacturing sector, where the president promised that they are trying to put in place 102 agro-processing factories, which tells you that the president is committed towards industrializing our produce. And I can, from where I sit, I could easily adduce to the fact that this government was so much prepared with agriculture. And there's one particular unsung minister, hero. I think it's the post-child, but the agriculture minister in the president of Dr. Akosua is one of the good performing ministers in Nana Akufo-Addo's government. He's done so well in the agricultural sector. And you could see that from time to time, he's able to formulate policies. And I'm so happy. I know those will surely come from him. Now, the Obatampa program seeks to look at how to commercialize farming. And I'm waiting for a policy on this as to how they are going to commercialize it and how they are going to set up these agro-processing factories. Very, very important. But the question is, where is the money coming from? Now, there were other interventions that I really wanted to hear, but once again, this is not so that comprehensive. So you may expect the budget statement to probably explain some of those things. Agenda 111.
Yes. The Agenda 111. That's on
Agenda 111. That was the 111
yes.
district
111
beds.
health facilities.
We talked about capital expenditure before we went for the State of Nation address, and this is one of the major interventions.
Yes. So once again, we are talking about
the how.
The how. You see, today I expected the president's posture to be more appealing than promises. And we are treading on some dangerous grounds, in the sense that we are not expecting to come out immediately from our crisis. It's a global phenomenon. So I expected the president to have been more appealing than the promises. I don't know whether you captured that.
Yes.
Probably I didn't hear it well, but I overheard professional allowances for teachers.
Yeah.
Yes.
More promises.
Currently, there are some allowances that I know are outstanding, for which some teachers are already agitating. And so why should we promise further, knowing very well that our expenditure to revenue ratio is, just too much. Okay, we are talking about, if you are to look at, if you pick the provisional 2021 budget, he spoke to the first quarter budget, which has a deficit of 11.4 billion. But the general proposed, the provisional one, it's about 20 almost 36 billion. Okay, we already have a deficit budget. And I'm wondering whether all these programs are captured in there. It is very crucial to ask such questions. But once again, let's wait for, we can only wait for the budget statement, but we can also conjecture and ask questions as to how these programs will be financed. Now, my good brother, it's also imperative to commend this government. In fact, we have been expecting this for a very long time, and I'm happy they have achieved it. We've mentioned the need to synchronize our identification processes in this country. I don't need 4 cards, identification cards, and I also don't need to put in so much effort before getting a tax identification number. But thank God today there's this synchronization to all these institutions. But the question that people are asking, if we are now converting all ID cards into TIN numbers, then the question is, we have an artificial human being, which is a company. True. Now, how are we going to describe this company?
You see, that's another layer, and a very, very important layer of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because this kinds of issues preceded this particular recommendation the president is talking about now, today.
Yeah.
Professor Gati, I want to bring you in while we round up, because the TIN, Ghana Post GPS, and a few other interventions were meant to help us in being effective at identifying the taxable population. We've been talking about widening the tax net for so long, but in your own analysis, how have these interventions, TIN, Ghana Post GPS, and others, helped in identifying the taxable population so that we can be able to rake more revenue internally? Prof.
That for so long, but in your own analysis, how have these interventions, TIN, Ghana Post GPS, and others, helped in identifying the taxable population so that we can be able to rake more revenue internally? Prof.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So I'll plead with you that you listen to me on the Zoom. Don't watch the TV because there's a bit of delay. So please go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. So I'll plead with you that you listen to me on the Zoom. Don't watch the TV because there's a bit of delay.
Yeah, I can't hear anything on the Zoom.
Okay, so but you can go ahead. You can go ahead. Please go ahead.
He doesn't hear you.
There's a delay.
Okay, Professor Gati, you can go ahead now.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think we've been talking about digitization of the economy and identify people who engage in economic activity through a unified platform for a very long time. Having stated that we are going back to that call, it is only interesting that we have decided to go back to that call now, and that is going to bring about efficiency. That will actually reduce the issue of carrying a lot of cards for different transactions. But what that also means is that the platform on which these things are going to be built on need to be protected effectively, because we are bringing everything on the same card, which is done elsewhere, and it brings about efficiency. So I think it's a good idea that is going to happen, but this is what we have been calling for a very long time, and I don't think that is something that we should speak to too much.
And I seek your final thoughts on the various economic interventions that have been announced. Dr. Malta talked about where the money is going to come from for some of these big ticket expenditure items like the Agenda 111, the hospitals that this government intends to build over the 4-year period, the Obantapa Cares program, the 100 billion for that fund, and then also the free SHS, for instance. Where is money going to come from for these big ticket items or expenditures that government intends to embark on? Prof.
Well, I think the SONA is all about indicating the state of the economy. So if the president chose to give promises as to what he wants to do in the health sector, road sector, rail sector, etc., it is also incumbent on the president to articulate where he's going to get the money to do some of these things, or where he's expecting to get money to do some of these things. And I don't think that he was very articulate about that. And I do not think that is different from what we experienced in 2017, 2018, 2019, up to 2020. Many projects were outlined, but they were not done. We were not able to raise money, so they were left undone. In fact, when the government received a lot of money because of the COVID-19, this 188, and then it moved to 111 hospitals at the district, regional, etc. levels. And we were told that those hospitals will be done within a year. Some will be done within a year. We were even told that work was starting around